pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah. The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Play Like a Girl. I'm your host, Gianna Cambria, as always, and this week I'm so excited to say that we have such an inspiring woman with us. Her name is Renee Blundon, and she's a former USA national record holder in free immersion and a free diving athlete. So let's introduce her today. Hi, Renee. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm so excited that you're here with us.
My pleasure.
I wanted to kick things off, and let's get into the first question of how you initially got into freediving.
Well, the short answer is I was actually on an underwater hockey team in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where I was living before where I am now. And so I was playing underwater hockey, and there were a couple of freedivers on the underwater hockey team who introduced me to freediving one day. The pool was closed. We couldn't play one day because they were fumigating. And so they were like, hey, let's go out freediving. And I'm like, freediving? Never even heard of it, like at all, ever in my life. And then I just watched them like free dive down into a shipwreck and all around the shipwreck and staying down for minutes at a time. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like, how are you doing that? I was just completely blown away.
Mm-hmm. So that's so interesting, though. Also, I've never heard of underwater hockey. How do you even do that?
That's actually a legit sport. I'm pretty sure it's in the Olympics. And you basically, you have an 8-inch long stick, and there's a puck on the bottom of the pool, and you've got like mask and fins on, and you basically like dive down and you're playing hockey on the bottom of the pool.
That's incredible. I would love to watch that.
They also have under ice hockey, where you play hockey on the underside of the ice.
What?
Yeah, so that's on my bucket list of things I want to do. Yeah, it's really crazy.
Wow. My brother's been playing hockey for so long. I bet if I told him about that, that'd also be on his bucket list.
Yeah, it's pretty epic.
So I know you told me that you moved out of the United States after you found your passion for this sport. So were you hesitant at all?
Well, I left the U.S. to live in Tanzania because I fell in love with Tanzania. I really loved the natural landscapes and swimming, snorkeling, diving in the Indian Ocean, and it was really like a paradise there. So I had traveled there on vacation, and then one time I went there on vacation, and I'm like, I'm not going back. So I just stayed. It was a very irrational like choice at the time. I had a job and a whole life in New York, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna stay here. I'm not going back. And yeah, since then, I have been back to the States a couple of times, but yeah, my employer at the time, we worked it out for me to work remotely. Wow. And yeah, just step by step, I just found ways to make it work financially, where to live, what sports to do, who to hang out with. So yeah.
That's amazing, because I feel like it's so hard to make a decision like that, and the fact that you even did something like that just shows how strong you really are of a person.
Yeah, it was kind of either I was very unhappy with my New York lifestyle. It was a very, very stressful lifestyle. And so it was either I stay in this place where I was very, very happy, like I was the happiest I've ever been in my whole life, or I go back to a place where I was quite miserable and unhappy and unhealthy. And I just like couldn't bring myself to go from one end of the spectrum to the other end. I'm just like, you know what, like, I'm just going to stay here. It feels right. And this is just the place for me right now. So I just couldn't bring myself to even be back in that office and back in that place for like one more minute. Not that I don't love New York, because I do love New York, but it was just the lifestyle that I was sort of like I felt very trapped in it. And the only way to escape is to just not go back in the cage, kind of thing.
Honestly, yeah, kudos to you, because there's so many stories. I'm from New York myself, and there's so many stories about people who hate their jobs, dread going in every morning until the end of their shift. They dread even coming back from it because they had to do it. And the fact that you were able to get out of that and figure out a whole new life, but stay connected at the same time, is just awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I did it. I was definitely very nervous in the moment, but I just didn't know any other way to like escape it. I just felt like if I went back, I would have just gone right back into the job, right back into the same situation. I couldn't find any way out. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to be completely like irresponsible right now and just not go back. So
I am aware that you are currently free dive training year round. So can you tell us a bit about what your training entails?
Well, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of training in the water. Basically, we have a buoy set up with a line attached, and so it's going up and down the line. It's not always doing personal bests, is what we call them. You know, it's not like I'm going to 70 meters every day. Sometimes it's, you know, it's like 10 dives at 30 meters or 40 meters. It's not always a super deep dive. So it's various depth training like that. And then also pool training is a big element of it. So basically the same, except you're going over instead of down. And meditation plays a role, yoga plays a role, strength training also. So it's also a lot of dry training and a lot of stretching. As much as I'm not a fan of stretching, gotta stretch if you're gonna free dive. And of course the mental training element is very important. So I think that's it. It's quite a lot of elements, which is why I like freediving so much. Because with all of the different training elements, it makes it much more interesting. So it kind of mixes it up.
Well, it sounds like you have a balance of everything, which goes into one huge thing, which is so important in any sport, because it takes much more than just practicing one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think overall, like, I'm mostly inspired to train because it keeps me fit, it keeps me healthy and happy. So whenever I like stop training freediving for a while, I start, maybe drinking too many coffees. Maybe I'll have some alcohol, some bad food. But I feel like when I'm like training, when I'm doing freediving, it sort of keeps me on the straight and narrow and keeps me feeling good. So, so that's why I really like it. It kind of keeps me inspired and motivated and healthy. So,
which is great.
Yeah, I think they call it a keystone habit. Like it's like the one habit where if I do that, it keeps like all the other habits really good. But if you stop the keystone habit, then like everything just falls apart. So I'm not that bad. I'm not like total self-sabotager, but still.
So I want to talk a bit about the former U.S. record that you held in free immersion. First of all, that's insane. So I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you have been 74 meters down, which is about 242 feet, and then 78 meters in free weight, which is about 256 feet down. How did you get yourself to do that, to go that deep?
It's never, how can I explain? It's something that like you build it up over time. So it's like, it's the kind of thing where, I'll start my training season, maybe diving to meters, and then slowly build that up to 42 and then 45 and then 50. And then before you know it, I'm at like 70 and then 75. It's sort of like you slowly build it up over a long period of time. So because of all the experience leading up to it, it's not something I'm really that nervous about because it's just like usually a little bit deeper than what I just did. And what I just did was fairly easy and doable. So I should be able to go a few meters deeper. So you sort of build the confidence like with every dive and with all the training. It just kind of happens. Sometimes I show up at the blue hole and I'm just like kind of beside myself thinking, wow, I'm about to do a 70-meter dive. Like never would have thought I would be doing this 5 years ago. I would have never, or when I started, I would have never. My intention when I first started freediving was not to go deep. It was just to freedive, to see fish and take underwater photos. So it just, one thing led to another, and here I am doing depth.
Well, it's kind of crazy how life works like that, though, because you never know where you'll be in 5 years from now, in 2 weeks from now. It's so unpredictable.
Yeah, exactly. I remember my friends, when I first started freediving, they were always like wanting to go up and down the line. And I'm like, why are they doing that? That's so boring. Like, why? Like, what's the point? Like, you can't even see anything. Like, all the fish are over there. And then here I am, like, like 6 years later doing this, like doing it. So it's just, it's kind of just happens. You just end up going really far down a rabbit hole and then there's no going back.
So what goes through your head when you're that deep in the water?
It's actually quite meditative when I'm freediving. So while I'm freediving, I have my eyes closed because I don't even, the aim is to keep my heart rate very low. So I don't want to be distracted by anything. So the eyes are closed and it's kind of a meditative state. I'm not really thinking about anything, especially during the free fall phase, which is when you become so negatively buoyant in the water. It's around 30 meters that you don't even have to fin anymore. You just like sink down. Wow. Just like you're falling. So that's why it's called free fall, because it's like you're free falling. So it's very, very meditative and very like kind of flow state. And usually the only things I'm thinking about, if I'm thinking about anything, is what I need to be doing in that moment. And that's like managing the equalization. It's keeping the position. It's keeping the shoulders relaxed. keeping the legs relaxed. I'm just sort of focusing on the most important thing in that particular moment of the dive. So like if I'm approaching the bottom plate about to turn, I'm focusing on the turning technique. I'm focusing on grabbing the tag. If I'm starting to pull up, I'm focusing on the pulls. I'm counting the pulls. So it's just whatever is the most important thing that's going on in that moment of the dive. That's what I'm like hyper focused on.
Yeah. So what is like the most interesting thing you've seen while diving, or like an experience that you've had with a sea creature that you would like to share with us?
Well, I went freediving with whale sharks. That was definitely a highlight. And they're quite massive. They're about the size of school buses. I never realized how gigantic they were. And they tend to feed on the surface, like very close to the surface of the water, with their mouths like completely open. So it can be easy if you're like jumping off of a boat to accidentally like jump almost right into the mouth of one of them. So yeah, there's a video of me like where I literally missed this creature's mouth by like 2 inches. Yeah, because you don't always see them, like they're not like sticking out. So you jump in the water and like you've got like a whole mouth right there, just like, oh my god. I mean, they don't eat people. They only eat like little tiny fish, but still, like, can't imagine it would be good to just dive right into a whale shark's mouth. Yeah. So that was definitely an experience, and I would like to dive with more marine animals in the future. But so far, it's just been that, and then I went scuba diving with ragged tooth sharks in South Africa, which was pretty cool as well. Especially because I was filming them at the time. So when you're filming underwater with the particular camera I had, the shark appears very far away, like because it's like a little thing you look in, and I'm like filming, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting this really good footage. I'm getting this super good footage, and then I take the camera down, and the shark was like literally right in front of the camera, but the camera made it look like he was further away because of the, I don't know, the lens setting. Nearly gave me a heart attack, seriously, because I just thought he was further away than that.
No, I definitely would have had a heart attack.
Yeah, but ragged tooth sharks, they're actually quite friendly. They're like cats. And some people were like even petting them. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to, go that far. But and their teeth fall out because they have like the rows of teeth, so they fall out. And so in this sand, you can like find a bunch of teeth and take them home and stuff.
That's so cool.
So, yeah.
Well, so we're going to take a really quick commercial break right now. When we get back, I want to talk about the concepts of female empowerment and just your idea of it.
Okay, great.
See you in a bit.
Okay.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is, when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion, or you think a concussion has occurred.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
Okay, and we're back.
Hey.
How are you doing? I know it's
good. Yeah, I'm okay though.
All right. So, obviously, this podcast is all about female empowerment and embodying the qualities of a strong and empowered woman. So, what qualities do you think this type of woman upholds?
This type of what?
The type of woman, like an empowered woman. What qualities do you think that she upholds or withstands?
Well, I think a certain amount of self-confidence, just to be able to be disciplined enough to show up every day and to train, or even if you're not training for anything, to be like strong-minded, to be able to do whatever it is that you're up to, whatever big things that you're up to. So I would say like self-confidence is a pretty big one. Also empathy. Obviously too much self-confidence, it's never a good thing. Empathy, trying to understand other people's viewpoints, kind of trying to have an open mind. Caring about other people, caring about yourself, taking care of yourself, and just being kind to the people around you.
So those are really good. So how would you say that you use those qualities that you were just talking about on a daily basis to further yourself in your training and just in life in general?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a massive reason why I love this sport, is because it definitely developed my self-confidence quite a bit. I used to be quite tentative and quite nervous. And then through the freediving, it builds the self-confidence. Every time, like, for example, I would be diving and at some point I would get to a spot where I couldn't dive deeper. It was just something was having me turn. I think it was around 60 meters, where every dive I did, I would always like turn at that point. And it was just a matter of taking a few months to build the confidence to overcome that mental block. And what's great about it is once you overcome it, and it may take a few days, it may take a few weeks, it may take a few years, but if you stick with it, and if you do overcome that mental block, whatever that mental block that's stopping you from going deeper than that particular depth, the moment you overcome it, you gain the self-confidence, and this permeates into all the areas of the life. So every time I like kind of break through one barrier and get through the next and then the next, I feel like I'm developing the self-confidence and all of the other things that come along with that. So
I 100% agree, because having self-confidence in any sport gets you so much further than where you were originally. And I know I lacked, like so many people I know, lacking confidence in sport. And when I was doing sport, I would like second guess myself, or I would just show traits that were not confident at all. And the second that I had somebody there for me, tell me, hey, you need to look at yourself differently and you need to keep your head up, I just was on an up from there.
Yeah, so much of it is believing in yourself and having like that motivation and that positive self-belief. It's so important when it comes to excelling in sports and just excelling in life and whatever it is that you're up to, just having that strong self-belief. So yeah. So how did your personal accomplishments from this sport lead you into coaching it or being an instructor? And were you nervous when you began doing that at all? Yes. When I first started teaching freediving courses, it was 5 years ago, and I was very nervous to the point where I actually wrote out my entire script for the course, and I'm like, I'm just gonna read this paper. Like that's it. Like I still have like binders and binders full of these narratives. I could probably publish them into a book now that I think about it. But slowly, I gained more confidence just in like public speaking and talking with people and explaining things. And then eventually, like, it wasn't soon after that I lost the paper. I mean, just writing it up kind of embedded it in my mind. So, but yes, I was very nervous when I first started teaching courses. And then now I'm not teaching so much because the pandemic kind of impacted the tourism here. So I switched to doing online work and online coaching. So, and developing online courses. So, yeah.
It's great that you were able to adapt with that because there's so many things that have changed due to COVID. And myself, I am also a coach of figure skating. That's the sport that I did. And so during the pandemic, I teach a camp during the summer, and I wasn't in the first 2 months. And then when we started coming in, we were having, there were so many rules we had to follow. I had to make sure I was cautious with everybody. And then we did some online classes as well, which was so hard to get the kids' attention, but like, it just was about adaptation. And when they adapted, it took a week or two, but they were still learning, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just to keep the conversation going. And there's so much you can do for dry preparation between, I mean, for any sport, between the stretching elements and the mental training. If you aren't able to do your sport, I mean, you can take advantage and try to work on some other element of the sport, strengthen the mind, strengthen the flexibility, whatever it is. So yeah, it can be an opportunity.
Yeah. So when it comes to any type of sport, like we were discussing, there obviously are lessons that people discover on a daily basis. But I'm curious as to what you've learned from being an instructor. Like anything that you've learned from one of your students that they brought to your attention, or just anything in general?
I would say in general, patience. I was never a very patient person ever, but after years of teaching, it definitely had me like calm down a bit and be more patient working with people, patient waiting for people, being patient when you're getting hit in the face with fins or getting hit in your shin. So there's that. And then also being flexible in the mind, which kind of goes together with it. So before, when I first started freediving, every little thing would put me off. You know, if my mask was leaking a little bit of water and water was coming inside, or if I didn't have my snorkel that day, you know, or, you know, maybe I was borrowing a friend's or whatever. If I was in a different wetsuit, it would really put me off and it would really irritate me, and it would actually kind of ruin my dives and my experience. Just these stupid little things. Or if it was like a little bit wavy. But after teaching, I mean, it's really quite hard work being out in the water for a good portion of the day with people that are really struggling with, it's not an easy sport to learn at all. So people are really struggling. And so just explaining to them and with the waves, and it definitely made me a lot more flexible in my mind. I mean, now I can freedive like pretty much any mask, any snorkel, because, you know, sometimes a student would be complaining about the mask. Here, take my mask. I'll take your mask. So I would just be diving with this like horrible mask, which wasn't mine. And you just become much more flexible in the mind because of all of this.
Yeah, that's so important though. So can you tell us a bit about the PADI Ambassador Diver program that you're a part of? What is it like to be part of something like that?
It's great. There's a really nice community with PADI. They're almost like a diving family. And they're doing a lot of initiatives for holidays, like Women's Holiday, or International Women's Day, and diving holidays. And so it's great that they're doing all these things, and it's a matter of like being a part of that, trying to get them photos and things that they can post to just create more awareness about the the marine life, the Project Aware, and all of this stuff. I feel like the more amazing pictures that they're posting and the amazing videos that they're posting, I mean, they have such a massive market. It can just really create more awareness about these incredible creatures we have in the sea that we're unfortunately like polluting their habitats. And just the more awareness we can create, I think the better. Because you know, a lot of times it's out of sight, out of mind. If you don't see it, then you don't really realize the impact of having you know, paper plates all the time, you know, creating all of this garbage. You don't really realize the impact of that. And so just being in Dahab, a lot of people are very, very eco-conscious. Like for me, like nothing goes to waste at all. Like I try to like reuse everything, even plastic bags. Like I try to use them again. And even if I'm throwing away like vegetable scraps, that doesn't go to waste. It either goes into the garden or it goes to the goats or the camels. I mean, like literally no scrap of food, nothing goes to waste here, because you really realize the importance of everything.
Yeah, that's so important. And then I'm so happy that you're a part of something like that, because it's all about spreading awareness, and the more people that see it and the more people that share it, the more it affects the environment, or that it has a chance to change the world, you know?
Yeah, it really helps. And Patty has such a global reach that if they post something, I mean, so many people will see it and be inspired and hopefully motivated to not use like so much stuff.
So I wanted to say huge congratulations to you for being a part of the 2021 US ADA freediving team. So I'm curious for like what's coming up with you guys regarding competitions, and how people can like follow up with what's going on and how they can keep up to date with it.
They do have an Instagram page. I think they're pretty active on there. I believe it's USA Freediving. And so they are announcing things on there, and also their Facebook page. All of the athletes, they all like have different schedules and different competitions that they're doing. So so a lot of times, like you can follow the US Freediving Instagram, or you can also follow the individual athletes, because they all have their own schedules of their own competitions that they're doing. Especially, I think in the US, like, well, not in the US, but near the US and Hawaii and stuff, the competitions are completely different dates than here. But yeah, I plan to compete later this year. So right now I'm doing pool training, and kind of, it's a bit light in the season. I'm just kind of going a bit easy, building it up step by step. So I'll be competing depth wise in September, October, because that's like the best time to dive here. It's when the water is super warm, but it's not so hot outside, because August is so hot outside. Like literally you're just dying from the sun. So September, October, it's not so hot, but the water is still very warm. So yeah, I plan to do a lot of competitions then.
Well, so also you were kind of a part of history in the making. The Seamus Freediving World Championship in 2018. It was the first time the US freediving team ever attended the World Championship event at all. So how did you feel being a part of that? Like, how did it make you feel empowered?
It was definitely really exciting. It was so amazing to be in Turkey and to be with a team of US athletes. Right now in Dahab, I'm one of the only Americans here. So it was just kind of neat to be around like in a team of other American freedivers who I hadn't met previously. Yeah, I would say it was just like super exciting to be a part of that. And also very like, it was very nerving as well, because I mean, it's quite a big event. I mean, you're on like we're diving from a massive boat, and then there's another massive boat next to that with all of like the flags and TV screens and dive eye. I mean, it feels like you're like in the Olympics, you know, like it's very it's such a high profile venue that the last thing you want to do is like screw up. You're like, don't screw up. So it's quite a lot of it's a little bit stressful with the whole situation with all the boats and the news and everyone there. So yeah. But yeah, I held it together for at least for one of the dives. The other dive I totally messed up, but at least I did good on like the one. Yeah.
So we're gonna take another commercial break.
Okay.
When we get back, I have some questions about women in your life who have inspired you and kept you going.
Okay.
We'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, you know, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
Okay, we're back from our last commercial.
Okay.
So my next question that I was curious about is if there was a woman in particular that you stumbled upon across your lifetime who just taught you prominent life lessons and just made you feel inspired as a person.
Yeah, definitely. The first person that comes to mind is another free diver. Her name is Gianna Cambria, and she was actually one of my first coaches. Yeah. And she was very inspiring, not only as an athlete. She had the women's world record at some point, but just as a person, she's very caring and funny and very witty and fun to be around, and very independent, has her own business, really does really well, and just super inspiring across the board, across the career, and her personality was really great. And she also teaches yoga, so she was very inspiring to get into some yoga. I'm still not that much into yoga, but I do appreciate it here and there. And so yeah, she was a very special person when I met her and when I was getting coached by her. So very caring.
Yeah, I also with my sport we did yoga sometimes, and I like it here and there, but I feel what you're talking about.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, oh.
Okay. I mean, it's not for everyone, but at the same time, it's nice to just relax for that hour or so that you're doing it.
Exactly. She teaches the Kundalini yoga, which is very, it's very strong for the mind. So her as a person, she's very strong in the mind, but also very humble and very sweet. And just super empowered woman. So
they're all great qualities to embody as a woman.
yeah, definitely.
So can you tell us a little bit about your freediving podcast?
Yes, so I do have a podcast. It's about freediving and breathing techniques, meditation techniques, and then exercises. So it's basically, it started out as just a freediving podcast. So it was actually called the Freediving Podcast I couldn't really think of a better name. So I just called it that, but I renamed it to The Power of the Breath and Epic Wellness, because I wanted to basically, I want to bring techniques from freediving to regular people or athletes or any other kind of performers. And I feel like there's a lot in the breathing techniques that we do and the meditation techniques, and also the stretching preparation, and even the like gym routines that we do that can actually really benefit anyone. So I kind of renamed it because I didn't want people listening to think it was just for freedivers. So it's aimed to help freedivers, of course, but it's also like opened up to include information that really can help anybody listening.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's amazing. If anybody out here is interested, you guys should listen to Renee's podcast.
Thanks.
That's so cool. So you made me aware that you are into personal development, motivation, health, fitness, and nutrition. So what have you learned from embodying these ideas, and how do you plan to help others with it?
Well, that's where the podcast comes in handy, because I wanted to use that as a platform for sharing all of these interesting things that I'm learning and doing. I wanted to be able to share that with other people. And I feel like the podcast was like the perfect format, because I can just focus on the quality of the information versus if I'm writing a blog post or making a YouTube video, I can definitely get really like bogged down with trying to make it really pretty. Whereas in a podcast, I can just focus on, okay, what's the message? What information do I want to give people? Okay, people are struggling with anxiety attacks. I struggled with anxiety attacks. I still do struggle with anxiety attacks. So what are some breathing techniques that you can use for anxiety, for de-stressing, for right before you go to sleep? How can you breathe where you can get a better sleep? How can you breathe when you first wake up to energize your body? There's so many techniques like these that are out there that, like, before freediving, I never even knew existed. And not just breathing techniques, but also mental training techniques, especially like there's some very powerful meditations that I want to use the podcast to bring this information to people, and then also eventually make online courses, which are a little bit more detailed, than the podcast.
Well, that's so important, though. Those messages to get across to anybody. There are people that are struggling out there and are too scared to seek professional help. And the fact that your podcast is there and they can listen to it and help themselves little by little through it is just so inspiring as a woman. But also, it's so important to just have a platform that just demonstrates those qualities and those ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also do a lot of live sessions in the corresponding Facebook group. So people can even like listen live, watch live, and then just follow along. So that's another element to it as well.
No, I would love to listen to it, because I just think it would help me individually as a person. So I'm definitely going to check it out after this.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely join the group.
I will. So my last question for you, I asked the same thing to all of my guests on my podcast. As you know, my podcast is called Play Like a Girl. So what do you think it means to play like a girl, and why is it so important for the younger generation to understand the meaning behind it?
So I think play like a girl to me personally, that means like playing in whatever it is that you're up to, whether it's sport or another project, playing in a way that you're developing yourself all the time. You're constantly working on yourself, constantly developing your self-respect, your humility, your discipline, your empathy, and you keep working on yourself, and by empowering yourself by developing yourself, you're also helping those around you, because you're a mentor for everyone who's around you. So we'll inspire them to do the same. So yeah,
I 100% agree with that. It's so important to be there for yourself, but to have others learn from you. I know I've seen that so many times throughout my life. So that statement was just amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can inspire people and not even intend to, just because if for example, the other day I was doing pool training, and I was definitely giving it my all, doing my very best. And the girl who was doing my safety, she's actually arranged a freediving session a few days later, and she was like, "Oh, you inspired me." So the point is, you can inspire people just by focusing on your goals, committing to goals, keep working at them, never giving up. Not only is it good for yourself and to try to reach those goals, but a lot of times you inspire the people around you to do the same. And a lot of times you don't even realize it, how many people you're inspiring. So,
exactly. Yeah. And people are inspired on a daily basis, even not in sports. There's a saying my mom always said to me, you smile at someone when you walk past them. If they're not smiling, maybe they're having a bad day, and that smile can completely change their day and inspire them to restart and have a new one. You never know.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's so important to be soft on people, because I remember when I was younger, I would be like, oh, why are they acting so cranky, or why are they so like that? And then now, I'm older and wiser, just I'm much more softer on people, and I'm okay, well, maybe they're having a really bad day, or I don't know what happened, maybe someone in their family is sick. I just try to not be so judgy, because really you don't know. You don't know what's going on for that person in that moment, and we've all been there, we've all had bad days. So yeah, I think just being kind and having empathy is important, but of course not being too empathetic. So you don't want to you also want to stand your ground. I feel like this is important.
Yeah, very important
when it comes to certain things. So,
I agree with you.
Yeah, you got to stand up for yourself.
You definitely do. And not being afraid to do it is very important, because there's so many things that you see on the news or on social media of girls who aren't standing up for themselves when it's in a very important situation and they need to. They're just confined. They're just too scared to. And it's important as a female to tell others that that's okay, but to learn from it. And the next time an instance like that occurs, to stand up for yourself. It is scary, but
and stand up for something that you really strongly believe in. I was at the airport in Istanbul, and long story short, I was finally having a Starbucks coffee that I've been looking forward to for 2 years. And as I'm sitting there about to drink this coffee, there was toxic fumes of this chemical that these men were using. They were doing something, they were cleaning some fountain, painting something, I don't know, but it was definitely I'm not sensationalizing. It was, I worked managing construction, and whenever the guys had this kind of chemical, it was some kind of adhesive chemical, they would have to like enclose the whole space.
Wow.
And you can't be breathing that stuff in. And this is what they were using. And it was 2 older Turkish gentlemen who I definitely went over to. And I was just like, you can't be using this chemical. This is not okay. And they refused to listen to me. I spoke with the Starbucks people. They refused to talk to me. And I went and I spoke with the manager at the airport. I'm like, you know what? I have a 6-hour layover. I'm going to make it my mission to have them stop using this chemical. And I spoke with I finally got a manager to come down, and she stopped them from using this chemical. They didn't have permission to be doing this work. So they were both punished, is what she said. And they changed the whole air of the airport and everything, because I mean, it was quite toxic to be breathing this adhesive in. And like most people in that situation, they just sort of like accept it. Like, oh, that's just the smell in here. It's like, no, that is not okay. Like, I mean, I don't want to get cancer in 2 years from breathing this chemical in. So I feel like standing up for things like that. I mean, when it comes to your health, I mean, nobody else in the airport did anything, but I had to say something because it definitely wasn't right what they were doing. So things like that, I think it's important to be able to stand your ground, even if it's like older men that are kind of like, you know, oh, she's dumb, whatever. It's like, no, like.
Well, good for you for doing that. That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. I mean, I was I'm very like, I'll say something if there's something not right.
Yeah. Well, that's very important.
I don't hold my tongue.
Yeah, that's very important. Well, I loved having you on Play Like a Girl, Renee, and it was an honor speaking to you.
Yeah. Thank you again for having me.
No problem.
Really great.
You get some sleep. I know I am there. Sorry to do this long, but the conversation was so interesting. I just had to listen and keep going with it.
No worries, my pleasure.
Well,
thanks
I hope
again.
you have a good night.
Yes, thanks. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye. Okay, well, that was Renee. She was amazing, so inspiring to listen to. You guys should definitely check out her podcast. I know I'm going to. I need some mental health lessons. I need to get over some anxiety that I've been feeling lately, and she has the perfect outlet for doing that. But as you guys know, this is Play Like a Girl for the girls. I'm your host, Gianna Cambria, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is, when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion, or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, you know, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.